President Trump had a nuts, bonkers, off-the-wall, wild press conference on Charlottesville. This is going back like 2 days now. And this led to a media firestorm. Everybody was talking about it. Multiple people literally cried on TV over this. I'm going to show you a pretty long clip here, but it's worth it, and it's necessary for the context. He gave like a 20-some-odd minute press conference, and here is the key 4 minutes or so that has everybody's jaw on the ground. Let's watch.
Kane said that the alt-right is behind these attacks, and he linked that same group to those who perpetrated the attack in Charlottesville.
Well, I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm sure Senator McCain must know what he's talking about. But when you say the alt-right, define alt-right to me. You define it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying,
define it for me. Come on, let's go.
Senator McCain defined them as the same group.
Okay, what about the alt-left that came charging at it? Excuse me. What about the alt-left that came charging at the, as you say, the alt-right? Do they have any semblance of guilt?
This is Senator McCain's statement.
Let me ask you this. What about the fact they came charging with clubs in their hands, swinging clubs? Do they have any problem? I think they do. So, as far as I'm concerned, that was a horrible, horrible day. Wait a minute. I'm not finished. Fake news. That was a horrible day. I will tell you something. I watched those very closely, much more closely than you people watched it. And you have you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent. Go ahead.
Do you think that what you call the alt-left is the same as neo-Nazis?
Those people, all of those people, excuse me, I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis, believe me. Not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch. Those people were also there because they wanted to protest the taking down of a statue, Robert E. Lee. So, excuse me, and you take a look at some of the groups and you see, and you know it if you were honest reporters, which in many cases you're not, but many of those people were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. So, this week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week, and is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop? But they were there to protest, excuse me, you take a look the night before, they were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. Infrastructure question. Go ahead.
Mr. President, are you putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane?
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, sir? You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Kill the person. Heather hired
Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville
Excuse me.
to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
That was fucking crazy. That was crazy. So I saw first that Twitter was blowing the fuck up. And I'm like, what happened? What's going on here? And so then, I realized it was a press conference that he did, and I was able to dig up the video and watch it. And this was towards the end of the press conference. I guess he lost his cool, and he started lashing out. Now, in the immediate wake of what happened in Charlottesville, he came out and basically said a similar thing, but it was more calm. It wasn't like here he's lashing out, but he basically said, yeah, there's the violence and the hatred and the bigotry has to stop on many sides, And then everybody in the media went, whoa, many sides? What are you talking about, many sides? So for the situation in Charlottesville, guys, it's not like, for example, the Milo Yiannopoulos riots that happened at Berkeley, where you had, yes, Antifa, doing property damage and going crazy and being violent. And that's a situation where I did a segment and said, come on, man, you guys are being the problem here. You guys are the violent ones. The situation in Charlottesville is totally different. The situation in Charlottesville, you have white supremacists, white nationalists, and the next day you had neo-Nazis and KKK people, but they're out there copying Klan tactics. Hey, we have our fucking torches and we're going to stand here and we're going to protest the removal of the Confederate statue. Now, you're legally allowed, 100%, totally fine to go ahead and do your protest, but don't try to pretend like the non-violent, peaceful protesters who were counter-protesters who were there saying we disagree with these people, that they're an equal problem. So, I've shown you the pictures of what happened. He said there were some very fine people there, very fine people on both sides. Really? On both sides? Well, let me show you one of the sides. So, even if you talk about, hey, the night before with the Richard Spencer alt-right white nationalist rally where they had their torches and stuff, they were chanting White Lives Matter. They were chanting Jew will not replace us. There were people doing the Nazi salute. So you want to know why they all decided we're going to stand there with torches and do this ceremony to defend this Confederate monument? Because they were going for the symbolism of the Klan, you fucking moron. He's either a moron or he's deflecting and covering up and obfuscating for these people on purpose, which is actually worse because that would mean that it's a wink and a nod on his part saying, yeah, I kind of agree with the white nationalists and white supremacists here. So even the night before where, Trump's out like, well, it wasn't as bad then. Like, no, yes, even the night before, it was white nationalists, alt-right people, white supremacists, yes, chanting White Lives Matter and Jew will not replace us, copying the symbolism of the Klan on purpose. It wasn't equal. There's no equal blame here. Now, then the day after, okay, you had literal neo-Nazis and KKK members. Literal. People were walking around with shirts that had Adolf Hitler quotes on the back. Now, let me ask you a question. Let's assume, just to be super kind, okay, that the night before, that rally the night before, or the day after, where the night before, they did the symbology of the Klan, and then the day after you had literal neo-Nazis and KKK people there. Let's say somebody was there and they weren't a white supremacist. How would a non-white supremacist act in the situation when they look around and hear people start chanting, Jew will not replace us? Pretty sure they should be out. Oh, okay, guys, it was nice being here. Anyway, I'm out. Because you don't want to associate with that. You don't want to associate with that. That's like Trump saying, that's like you look at, remember years back, there was, there were the demonstrations, there were the violent demonstrations over the fact that a magazine published a cartoon of Muhammad. And then you had really angry fundamentalist Muslims, and they were out there chanting threats and super angry, holding up signs that said, people who offend Allah should be beheaded and shit. If you're somebody who was not a fundamentalist Muslim in that situation, you should probably look around and go, oh shit, no, I don't agree with that. I'm going to leave now. This is the same thing. People chanting "Jew will not replace us." People doing the fucking Nazi salute at the goddamn rally the night before. Never mind the night after when there were people flying fucking Nazi flags. That's when you go, oh, if I'm not a bad person, I'm gonna leave now. So this isn't a situation like that. You can't say, hey, it's not all the white supremacists are bad. That's like saying not all Salafists are bad. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they fucking are. Sure, not all right-wingers are bad, of course. Not all Muslims are bad, of course. But is the problem all neo-Nazis and white supremacists? Yes. Is the problem all Salafists? Wahhabists? Yes. This isn't that fucking difficult. He's doing the textbook definition of a false equivalence. You have one side that are not flying Nazi flags and are not the Klan and are not doing the Nazi salute and are not chanting "Jew will not replace us" and "White Lives Matter," not chanting "fuck you, faggot." That's another thing they chanted at the counter protesters. That was the day after. And the other side's peaceful. And the most important point, one of the sides committed a terror attack. He's doing a both sides thing when one side committed a terror attack. Yes, the white supremacists, one of them got in a fucking car and ran over another human being, did violence against a civilian for a political reason. It is the textbook definition of terrorism. But instead of going out there like Mr. Law and Order tough guy he supposedly is and saying, why won't people just say it? Why won't people call out the evil by its name? Radical white supremacist terrorism. Radical white supremacist terrorism. He goes out there and he's like, look, there were problems on both sides. There were problems. It's the alt-right and the alt-left. Alt-left? Okay, I'd like to thank all the corporate Democrats who created that term and started using that term against people to their left. Now the president has hijacked it, and he uses it to try to draw an equivalence between people who are Nazis and white supremacists and people who want universal health care and free college and a living wage. So thank you, corporate Democrats, for popularizing that term. Yeah, this is fucking crazy, man. This is crazy. And I think this goes a step too far, even for Trump supporters. Don't get me wrong, there's a 25%, maybe 30% base, probably more like 25%, that will never leave him, that will never abandon him. Say, no matter what, yeah, fake news, fake news, fake news, anything that's negative about him is fake news. But everybody else in the country is going, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because we all see the pictures coming out of there. We all know that poor little girl, that poor woman got run over by a white supremacist terrorist. People know what happened. People see the images of Nazi flags, KKK people holding up signs that say, Jews are the children of Satan. People saw the fucking torches and the chants, and they see how they're copying, the KKK symbolism with the torches. They see the cause that this is being fought over. This isn't a moderate Trump supporter who thought, hey, maybe he's going to be more anti-establishment and keep our jobs here and not outsource them. Because many people did vote for Trump for that reason. These are the people who voted for him specifically because he said, illegal aliens, the Mexicans, they're criminals, they're rapists. I assume some are good people, but they're criminals and rapists. Let's do nationwide stop and frisk. Got to do nationwide stop and frisk. So take away the Fourth Amendment rights of minorities across the board because it overwhelmingly disproportionately targets minorities and 99% of the time doesn't yield anything. These are the people who voted for him because he said, we need a total and complete shutdown of Muslim immigration. That's what we need. Total and complete shutdown. So these are the people who voted for him because of the hateful, bigoted stuff on social issues. That's who these people are. The kind of people, look, man, it's one thing if you live in the South and you're like, hey, come on, with the whole Confederate monument and stuff. It's just the relics from our past, and it's part of our culture and our history, and don't take it down. That's just my opinion. Don't take it down. If you're somebody like that in the South, That's fine, man. That's a totally legitimate opinion to have. That person is very different from somebody who would show up to a rally to protest to keep it up because you're that triggered by the thought of somebody taking it down. And oh yeah, by the way, in the midst of that rally, you hold torches to look like the Klan, and there are people around you doing the Nazi salute and chanting, "Jew will not replace us." The person who would casually say, "Hey man, maybe we should keep it up," is a very different person than the person who's triggered enough to show up to a fucking rally with a torch, hear the hateful chants, and look around them and see literal Klan people and Nazi people and still say, yeah, I think I'm in the right crowd. So no, there is no fucking equivalence in this situation between people on the right who are openly and brazenly showing their hatred and their bigotry and their xenophobia, and the people who are there saying, hey man, I think you guys are wrong. When you're president, listen, when you're president, it is specifically in situations like this where actual qualities of leadership and those vague, those vague concepts that we talk about that are kind of hard to define, but everybody kind of knows what you're talking about when you say it. It's in times like this when those qualities are most needed. Now, you guys know me, I'm a policy wonk, that's all I really care about. But yes, in a turbulent time, especially when there was a fucking white supremacist terror attack where they ran over a young woman, it's times like this where you need leadership. You need somebody in the country, a president, to come out and say, and put everything in perspective for you and let them know, hey, first and foremost, everybody needs to understand that we're Americans. Left wing, right wing, we need to come together. We need to fight against bigotry and hatred and violence. And let's be clear, there is no equivalence in this situation. We have hateful people on one side and people who are against hate on the other side. That's what's needed. Even George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. And I've been one to, I don't think I've given them credit once since Trump's been in power because the bar is so low. But this is an instance where they did something that was actually way more presidential than this dumbass. They released a statement saying, no, this is hatred, this is bigotry, this is wrong, and we should never stand for this. Mitt Romney did it. Lindsey fucking Graham, the guy who never met a war he didn't like, basically said, hey, dumbass, talking to Donald Trump, you do realize that every single neo-Nazi and KKK forum today is cheering you because they say we think he's on our side. Like, you do realize that, right? What you just did, whether or not you were trying to do it. So, yes, everybody seems to understand this is the time when you need a leader, a president, to come out there and say, okay, well, let's calm everything down, let's put everything in perspective, and let's be clear about our morals and our values and where we go from here. Trump did the exact opposite. Drew a false equivalence, berated people for coming out strongly against the white supremacist protesters. Somebody made a good point. You go to Trump's Twitter feed, he came out stronger against the CEO Council, which basically said, we're not doing this anymore because we think you're fucking nuts, talking to Trump because of his response to Charlottesville. Like, a bunch of the CEOs were like, yeah, we're out. We don't want to be associated with this guy anymore. So he started like ranting on Twitter against the CEO of Amazon, for example, like, yeah, well, Amazon's hurting communities and stuff, and yeah, like, I don't even need... He acted like he was the one who disbanded the CEO Council when it actually disbanded because everybody was like, I'm not doing it anymore. But Trump went out there and tried to save face like, I'm disbanding it. No, you're not. Everybody just left. So they already left, and now you're saying you disbanded it to save face, to try to act like you're the one who disbanded it when they left. So he came out with a harsher tone against people on the council than he did against the fucking Nazis and Klan members at the rally. The Breitbart presidency, the Daily Caller presidency, that's what this is. And he's now lost almost everybody. He's got that strong base that's never going to leave him, about 25% of the country, but that's not a lot, man. That's not a lot. And there was a poll done after this incident More people think Trump supports white nationalism now than people don't think he supports it, than people think he's against it. A plurality of people say, I think he's in favor of white nationalism. This is as bad as it gets.